Buenas tardes a todos. Los que llegaron tarde, no sé si escucharon, el panel se va a llevar a cabo en inglés. Si necesitan traductores, equipo de traducción, perdón, por favor les pedimos que suban por ahí. Okay, so we are ready to start. Are you ready? Yes. Of course. How has been your day? Are you enjoying it? Yes. Great. We're just starting today and we have had excellent experiences. So I'm going to introduce the 5 experts that will be joining us in the keynote panel. First, Professor Nadia Arden, Director of the Department of Science Teaching at the Weizmann Institute. Welcome. Dr. David Bristow, Deputy Chairman of the Jewish Agency for Israel. Dr. Naamat Zoran, Developmental Psychologist and Educational Systems Consultant. Welcome. Karen Tal, Karen, Founder and Director of Tovanot Bechinuch. Dr. Tali Freund, Developmental Psychologist and an Educational Systems Consultant. Welcome everyone. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to explain how this is going to work. Our panel will be led by questions, and it will help us to learn, to have an opportunity that our keynote experts will share their passion, perspectives, and approach to education. We have 3 guidelines, 3 questions that will guide our panel. Every expert will have 2 minutes to answer each question. And at the end of the panel, we will have time for you to ask them questions. If you have questions, meanwhile they're speaking, we ask you that you please enter our Facebook page, Colegio Hebreo Tarbut MX, and we have a live video already there of this event, so you can share your questions and write them in the comments, and we will write them and pass the questions to our experts. You can ask questions. If you have a question for one of them, that's fine too, okay? First, we will start with the introduction of each of you. You will have 1 minute to introduce yourself. I want to make clear something. Their native language is Hebrew for most of you, no?
Yes,
So please be patient. They're gonna try their best to speak the best English they can. So do I, because my native language is Spanish, as you can see, but I speak English and Hebrew. Okay, so we will start with 1 minute. You can see at the screen the time. So, Anat, if you wanna start.
Hello everyone. I'm really glad to be here and grateful for the invitation. And I come from the Weizmann Institute of Science. I'm the head of the Department of Science Teaching, also head of the biology group in this department. My background is in biology. I studied at the Weizmann, and I did a postdoc at Stanford University in genetics. But about 20 years ago, I moved to science teaching because of a really cool idea that was given to me by one of the scientists at the Institute, Professor Benny Geiger, who were talking about the way biology is taught in schools, and the fact that actually we teach in most schools until today also is as a collection of facts, and he suggested we'll use scientific literature articles that are adapted to the knowledge level of the students, and I thought this is interesting, and I'm working on this since then. And I see my time is up, so thank you.
Thank you, Nat. David, please.
Thank you. I really didn't know what I was going to say until I participated this morning in one of the workshops that the students here at the school go through, and I was told I had to say who I was, not in 1 minute like I have now, but in 1 or 2 words. And I had to get into myself and close my eyes, and it was very helpful, because what I came up with is a practical dreamer. My title today is the Deputy Chairman of the Executive of the Jewish Agency, but really I still feel that that's the title only and not who I am. And I think who I am is really the same then young man who made Aliyah 45 years ago from the United States, with the commitment and passion for doing anything I could to make of Israel all that it was meant to be. I did my doctorate in contemporary Jewry and teaching Israel. Fortunate enough to be able to work in that field throughout my career and continue being that practical dreamer.
Nahara Zoran from Israel. I brought the Reggio Emilia approach to Israel in 1998. In my background, I'm a psychologist, developmental psychologist, and my PhD is in education. And every day in Israel and in other places, I'm fighting for children's rights from birth, where the first one is the right for high quality education. I'm a wife, a mother of 4, a grandmother for 4 children, and the 5th is on her way.
מזל טוב. תודה נעמה. פחות, less than 1 minute,
Because I'm saving seconds for later.
perfect. Okay, Karen, ready?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Tal, also from Israel. I'm the CEO of Educational Insights. It's an NGO that we believe in public education, that all of us should strengthen the public education. I'm also the former principal of Bialik Rogozin School. There we build a holistic model how to take care about the children all over the day and take care about the emotionals, the study, and also to figure out a dream of each child. In Tobanot B'Chinuch, we are involved in 48 different schools, building a huge community of volunteers, and they bring also extra budget to each school, because we believe even though a school that's located in the Israeli periphery, each school should be a place of inspiration. I'm also a mother of 2 girls, like to dance, Pilates too, and enjoy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Tali Freund, and begin with me being a mother to 2 great children, 6 great children, grandchildren, 2 children. Live in Tel Aviv. I worked in the Ministry of Education for almost 10 years in evaluation. There I met Hani. Then I moved to Tel Aviv municipality, also worked in evaluation. And for the last 15 years, I worked in the CET, Center of Educational Technology. And I was the one who is responsible for most of the large-scale assessment tests in Israel, like Bagrut, Meitzab, please don't kill me, and evaluating the effectiveness of educational programs in Israel.
As you can see, everyone, there's much to learn from all our experts. So we start with the first questions. The first question is, when you wake up in the morning, what inspires you to go to work? What is your personal why?
Okay, you switched the first and second language. It's the second question, but anyway, it will come together. So the most inspiring or motivated thing that I have is the feeling that we can somehow make a change, that the things that we develop can make a real change in the educational system, and the problems I will list in the second question. And what really motivates me to go to work is the wonderful group of graduate students that work with me on developing those initiatives. And it's a really, really big pleasure, great pleasure to work with them. And also the group of teachers that work with us on those projects and that help us to implement changes in school. And above all, the most important thing is to be able to go to school and see that even if we see a really small change, it's really something that motivates me and is really inspiring and encouraging. Because actually, as I said, we are located at the Weizmann Institute of Science, and what motivates all our department of science teaching in this wonderful institute is to make a change in the school system. It's not that we are located in an academic place that write research papers. We do write research papers, but we want the fruits of those researches and development that we do to reach schools. And the fact that we can really do it and work with teachers and with students and also develop new initiatives, it really is the inspiring thing.
Thank you, Anat.
My answer sounds like the beginning of a joke. A rabbi, a school principal, and a board member walked into a bar. Actually, they didn't walk into a bar, but I did meet each of these people at some point over the last 3 months. Not just any rabbi, school principal, and board member, but people who had been my students, one of them as far back as 35 years ago. The rabbi had arranged for me to come and speak at her synagogue, things that she had been a student of mine in Israel, and things that I had to say on Israel-diaspora relations she wanted me to share with her congregants. The school principal had just retired. I met her just last week by chance in Jerusalem. She was a student of mine on when I was teaching a summer course at Hebrew University. And she told me until the very end, which was just last year, she was still using curriculum that we had developed together during that summer. The school board member was also a student of mine in a program in Israel. He was new on the school board. He was not happy with the way that Israel was being taught in the school. He remembered how we had learned about it many, many years ago and asked me to come and do a consultation with teachers. So if you say the idea of being able to make a change, we all say it's kind of a trite answer, but we all feel as educators that we're planting seeds. We never quite know what's going to grow out of them. And the fact that these 3 people, just 3 of I hope many, who all told me that the kind of impact I had on them is really what keeps me going. And if we all think back to the teachers, to the educators who have had an impact on our lives, the idea for me of potentially being one of those people that can impact on others, on the lives of others, the way those educators impacted on mine, is really what makes the profession so special for me.
Thanks, David.
Needless to say that I also wrote to make a difference in the lives of children, faculties, parents. In 1996, I went for the first time to Reggio Emilia to a seminar. This was like one of the first seminars that they've launched. And the seminar was opened by Carla Rinaldi. She was a successor of Loris Malaguzzi after he died in 1994. And this is how she opened the conference. She said, why you're here? And someone thought that it's a real question. And she said, no, thank you. And she said, you're here to learn about yourselves. At that moment, I knew that my life has changed forever, because it just went inside to the places that I already had as a psychologist and an educator. And she said, we are opening for this week. We will open for you many, many windows, but these are our windows. When you'll go back home after the week, you'll have to sit with your colleagues within your context and think about what kind of identity do you have, and how do you want to fulfill, let's say, its life. Because I believe that if there is a place on this planet, in Reggio Emilia, that the word compromise doesn't exist in the vocabulary, we have something that we have to embrace.
Believe it's a very deep belief that Israel should struggle with those a huge gap that we have, and we are #1 in inequality according to the OECD. We have too much children in Israel that really, because they came from a very poor neighborhood and poor background by the family, they come to school and then they are very frustrated. And I believe that school should be a place of happiness for those children. So every morning when I wake up, I see in front of my eyes, it doesn't matter be Muhammad or David or somebody that live in the north of Israel or in a poor neighborhood in Tel Aviv, to see this picture that those children that came, they carry on their shoulders a bag not just with books or tablet. They carry, most of them, a complicated story. And I really want the school, the teachers, the principal, the community to be able to understand that each one of those children should, if we are talking about quality, about opportunities, about what it's really Megillat Ha'atzmaut and democracy means, it's that no child should be behind this real chance. So I want that for each of those children to, in the beginning, give them the basic needs of food, emotion support, to create them a better environment that they can also, like most of our own children, get their real chance because they get a good families. So those children also should be part of the community.
My personal why arrives from my experience knowing the power of evaluation. I think that in all the places I used to work and in most of the occasions I took part, when data were shown or when I presented the data, it always began from a place of listening, understanding, talking, reacting. And that's the power of evaluation, to enhance discussion, to enhance conversation. And that's my personal why. And that's why I continue to work in this area, because I enjoy helping teachers, managers, students to use data, to base their activity on data, even if they're not flattering the data, still to think how can we improve. For the last 3 years, I come every year to Tarbut for months, and I'm trying to do my best to help the team here to use the data for improvement. I mean, evaluation doesn't stand alone. It's always part of a process, and that's what I'm doing here, trying to put data on the table, based activity on the data, and trying to improve from year to year, and it's forever.
Okay, so we'll go now to the second question. If we're talking about education, that's our main issue here. When you go to sleep, what worries you? That's a hard one, no?
Unfortunately, there are many things to say, so I hope I have enough time to say. And maybe I'll start with a major concern I think we all have around the world, is the declining interest of students in science. What we observe that around the middle school, students are less and less interested in science. This leads subsequently to a reduction in the number of students that choose it for their career. And I think it's also I think every one of us feel it, and it's also evident by research that was carried out around the world. It's mainly in the Western world, and I think we all need to think about how to change it, because it is a major problem. Now, this real general problem leads me to talk about something which really more concerns me myself when I'm talking about biology education, but I think it's also in general for science education, is that there is really a big gap between the current knowledge in biology that is known among the scientific community and the knowledge in biology that is taught in schools. The books that we have in Israel are maybe from the beginning of the year 2000. It's almost 20 years old, and it's something which is very different from the knowledge in biology, and that is known today. And also, we do not, and even more importantly, we do not equip the students today with the practices that they need in order to be citizens when they grow up. And we are all flooded with news from the media, what is called the tools to confront with those news, to read the newspaper, go to the doctor, decide about various decisions that they need to make in life, using scientific practices and not necessarily the scientific knowledge that we teach them. So I'm sorry my time is up, but still more to say.
Thank you. David, please.
What worries me is technology for 2 reasons. Well, actually maybe for 3, because I don't know how to use it. So that worries me too. But it was already some 25, 30 years ago in one of the programs that I was directing, students who were coming into the program who didn't come from a certain background were required to read 3 books. And I remember an applicant really stood out the conversation I had with him. He said, "Can't we watch 3 videos instead?" And this was long before Instagram and Snapchat and Google and internet and everything else. But for me, somehow that stuck in my mind as a turning point when students were getting away from really reading and delving into knowledge. And the amount of material that's out there now on the internet, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn the clock back. I think the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. But if we don't train our students, and more importantly, if we don't train our teachers as to how to train the students in the use of the technologies that are out there, I think we're going to create people who are intellectually lazy. You can sit down and have Google all but write your report for you, and you don't need to search and compare, and there are others that are out there that can already analyze the book that you have to write a book report for, and so on and so forth. So I think the real challenge out there for us is, can we use, if we only use the technology that exists to challenge students to do the same kinds of things that I had to do in school, then we will create this kind of laziness. And the question is if we can use this technology to get to new depths. I don't know if I had the experience this morning that I had at the school before I had thought about what I would have said. I would have said the same thing, because it's clear in a school like here in Tarbut and what we heard about from Yaakov F. this morning, that there are many ways of using that technology, but it's really how we embrace it that is of concern to me.
I had to things with the sentence. When you go to sleep, I hardly sleep. And the worry. I do not define it as a worry. For me, every night before I go to sleep, I reflect with one question. I'm like consulting in Israel and in other places too. Have I touched a child, a teacher, a parent today, and in what way? And if I haven't, then what led to that? Because I know one thing. First, we meet the psychology of the person. Then everything could happen. And this is like the main thing. What kind of a meeting did I have with everybody that I was with? I find that teachers need many, many skills in how to really meet the children, the colleagues. Martin Buber said that the whole life is a meeting. And we know that every child wants to be met, whether his or her door is open, closed, or locked. And especially those children that the door is locked, they are waiting for us. And we must have many, many keys to be able to open the door. Thank you. Now.
I have, unfortunately, not just one thing that I'm worried about. So the first one is about what happened in our Israeli society. It's about the solidarity. I think that what's happened of all what we read and we hear in the media, but according to our leaders, it's always somebody is against somebody else. Jewish against the Arabs, Arabs against the Jewish, secular, religious. And all this atmosphere, immediately, influence what's happened to the 2 million of the children of Israel, what's happened about the educators, the way that they should struggle with this terrible phenomena. And instead of thinking about the way that we should embrace the difference and the multicultural in Israel, it's like everybody is against everybody. And so in one hand, I'm not so optimistic, I'm pessimist about what's coming from our leaders, but in the other end, I'm very optimistic because the leadership of the principals in schools, that they don't get these noises, terrible noises, go in front, and even though it's very complicated, each one of them really want to build a good climate in school, to encourage a collaboration between the students and the families and the teachers, and we should really embrace the educators in Israel and give them more honor. So in one hand I'm very optimistic, but in the other hand very pessimist about what's happened. And the second thing that I'm concerned about is what's the relevance of the school for the new generation. What we should, but maybe the next question I will say something about that.
I believe in Peter Drucker, who said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. But this sentence caused much too much measurements all over the world. I think today we measure almost everything that moves, okay? But sometimes we don't measure the right things. For a long time I was responsible in Israel for developing the test, the national test. But what did we measure? Achievements in mathematics, in Hebrew, in Spanish, in English. But what about skills? What about skills for life? Like critical thinking, leadership, cooperation, communication. These skills we never measure. Why? Because it's hard to measure. It's much more easier to measure achievements in math, but it's so difficult to measure those skills I just mentioned. And if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So teachers don't put any attention, or they should put much more attention on those skills that are so important for life. And secondly, I identify with you, Yaakov, your lecture in the morning, and I was thinking that we used to measure students with the same tools. All of them are measured with the same standards. And what about uniqueness? So this bothers me a lot.
The third question is, if you had a magic wand, how would you solve your concern?
Okay. If I had a magic wand, I would...
No limits, let's say. No
limits of time? No limits of time?
No, this time, yes, but no limits of money, nor anything. Okay. You could do everything. What would you have?
The first thing is I would like to stop the race for teaching content, and more content. I think it's the main problem that we have, and I would like to move to an educational system that strives to produce graduates with high order thinking skills, as was mentioned before me. I think this will prepare them to be citizens in the current society much better than when we focus so much on content. But this will also call for a change, so I would like to touch the educational system and make change in the syllabi and in the way that those things are evaluated. As Tali said, it's very difficult, but we should be able to find the means to evaluate it. And the most important thing about all this is to touch the teachers and to be able to empower the teachers, first of all, that their profession will be appreciated and that their needs will be met, that they will have very good conditions in schools to be able to work, meet students, meet colleagues, make this profession something that, as it should be. And I think this is if we will be able to make this change which is not so difficult and doesn't really need a magic wand, I think it will make all the difference and all the change that we need to make.
You said you're concerned about the contents as opposed to the higher level thinking and so on. I started to say before about my concern with technology. The other concern I have about technology is the temptation that it offers people in terms of career choice and what they want to do. The money that's out there in the field of high tech and artificial intelligence and so on and so forth, I think is drawing more people, more young people, if not in science, that, as you mentioned, certainly in the directions of computers and math and so on, in order to be able, upon graduation, to get those high salaries. That we're training people to, you didn't put on my timer. It's okay, I'll be short. Gee, and I even told you to put on my timer. Or I shouldn't have said anything. But the education, I'm concerned that if we don't intend the education to be that the students are taking it to be in a very utilitarian way, to train themselves to be good providers as opposed perhaps to being good citizens or self-fulfilled people. And therefore I would use my magic wand, first of all, to create the kinds of schools that we heard about from Yaakov this morning and that we've experienced here at Tabut, where I see there's a huge emphasis on on young people developing their own potential in different ways. But also, again, it's a pat answer, but to raise the salaries of teachers. First of all, those who have already chosen it out of a passion deserve much more than they are getting. And those who might want to go into the field of education but feel they can't afford to do it because of the salaries that are out there, we're losing those people. And I really think that, again, my magic wand would be to create a system where people are looking for self-fulfillment and not for utilitarian purposes.
So I do not believe in magic wand.
In a magic wand, no?
No.
Okay, no magic.
I do believe in hard work. I learned in Reggio Emilia that in the educational work there are no shortcuts and no magic. The real magic is when you're with a teacher or you enter a class and you see it could be like even like a very, very like tiny nuance of a change in the approach, and you know that we've made a step. When I first was approached by the Reggio Emilia approach, it was in a conference in the United States, and 9 a.m. sharp, there was a slide on the wall of an infant, 11-month-old, sitting, and there is like a white big paper with a hole in the middle, so she was like in the center. And around her there were like cans with paints and brushes, and you could see the traces that she has made on the... Nobody talked, they just let us like internalize the image. And they then explained like their approach. I said to myself, oh my God, 20 minutes, seconds. Okay, forget all of that. So, doesn't matter what I said to myself. But, now, fast forward, let's say 15 years after, I'm in Reggio Emilia. I'm having lunch with one of the teachers. Give me just, okay. I'm having lunch with one of the teachers that works in the school, and she asked me, how did you started like your journey with us? And I explained that it was that picture, and she said, I was the teacher. I was like, what, where's my notebook? And the one thing that she said to me relevant to this, she said, we had a staff meeting with Laura Malaguzzi the day before, and we planned, like we talked, we discussed what would be important, how would we do it. And all was arranged. I came in the morning, I arranged everything as we planned. Lois Malaguzzi, he was like the first pedagogista in Reggio Emilia. He entered at 9 something and he said, "What is this?" And I'm like to myself, she says, "This is what we talked yesterday?" He said, "No, no. It seems to me that it won't reach." And on the spot, he had a dialogue with her and they changed it to the image. Okay. I think it's profound. Thank you.
Thank you.
As always, it's with the students at risk. So my dream is that all those schools that are located in the Israeli periphery will become like, each one of them like a diamond. And to take something from this great environment, for example, to have a curriculum that will be very, very relevant to the students, because we don't know what will be the job in the future. We know for sure that each one of those children that will graduate this school, they will change many times their own career. So how the school will be relevant, what is the most important, how to build a self-esteem to a child, how to emphasize the emotional skills to the children, the curiosity, they encourage to dream, and also to give this basic knowledge to know how to learn alone, not by just a teacher that give you the lesson. I really want those schools become a school for the whole community, to embrace each one that want to come and help, and to build a real bridge between schools and outside. Because if we want to prepare the students, and especially students at risk, because if they are from a good family, never mind, they will go and they will find their own way. But especially about this profile of the students, they need somebody that will run with him. So the force of the build again the solidarity in Israel, the huge force of volunteers. In the bus I talked with Sima. Where is Sima? Raise your hand, please. And you give such many examples about all the places that you are involved. And I was so proud because I said, I know that you influence not just the students that you work, but when the teachers see somebody that came and volunteers in school, it strengthens the teachers, it strengthens the principal, because they understand that if a volunteer came, there is something good that we are doing at schools, and you know how to embrace somebody that came from outside, so you give the energy, keep going, and keep going good.
Hani, in the morning, you invited us to dream and to create. And so I take it. For me, if only we could enable each and every student to have his own program, his own way, his own route, according to his wills, his interests, her abilities. And if we could measure their progress in their own program, in different tools, on different subjects, I would be more than happy. Of course, in a traditional school, we can't do it. But we are here to dream and to create alternatives. And you know, it's like a startup. Every new startup we say, no way, it's a bizarre idea. But after it comes through, we say, how could we not think about it before? It's so obvious, so why won't we do it? So I really hope that we will be able to do it these days in the conference.
Please, I'm out of words, and so inspiring listening to you and interesting. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause to everyone. Before we start with questions. Do we have questions? Okay, we have.
First question, how could we inspire the students to study science? For Anna Jordan.
I think what you're asking is especially in mathematics and physics, because in these topics we see a problem. I think in chemistry and biology we don't have a problem, at least not in high school. It's a problem that is more in the step of at the level of their careers. And I think that there are various ways that are tried today, but it's not so easy for them to really believe that they can confront and study in those topics. One of the approaches, surprisingly, is to teach in a separate girls and boys classes, and to enable them to really be able to study physics and mathematics to a higher level, and to show them that, and also another way is to use role models, that those people that really succeeded, women that succeeded in careers in those topics, to come and talk with them. And it's, I think, efforts in this direction were just started in the last few years. And also at the Weizmann we have a group that's is trying to encourage girls to learn those topics, but it will still take time. So I'm sorry I don't have magic answers.
We shouldn't wait to older ages. I think that this is what we call the image of the child. What kind of image do we have about children, boys, girls, and if we believe that the child is competent, then the educational environment should represent it. And if the message of "you are a researcher" is inherited from the, let's say, 4 months that infants are entering some settings, then I think we will have more chances later on.
The girls get higher achievements in those subjects in many national tests in Israel and in the world. So girls, you are good.
In this panel, we are 4 girls.
There's a token male on this panel, which is also, it's very interesting for me actually to be the male on this. It makes me empathetic with so many panels where there's a token, oh, we have to find a woman who's going to speak. So I'm glad to be in this position. But I agree with you, it's from birth. I have 13 grandchildren. I didn't get to mention that in the beginning. 2 of whom have birthdays, and on the way back, I've got to get the presents. And I'm gonna get a Barbie doll and a train set. And guess which is gonna get which one? I mean, I can get the train set for the girl. I think she'll enjoy it. But for me to come back with a Barbie doll for the boy, it's not gonna work. And it should. And so I think we all have to think about that, how we bring up our children, or if it was too late for our children, at least for our grandchildren.
One more question.
Yeah. A tip for young people who are finishing school, for all the panel. A tip for young people who are finishing school.
Wait. Who are finishing, what would you advise them now that they're finishing school?
Don't be afraid from the world.
And don't be afraid of failure, because we learn from failures.
I think be yourselves and go and search for the magic that would take you so far away. Yes.
I'm big on self-fulfillment. We have a lot of people at the Jewish Agency who had indeed trained in computers. I have a lawyer now working for me. They were all out in fields where they felt that they had to do these things because that's how they were going to either please their parents or the expectations or make more money. And after a number of years in the field, have come back to work with things that they're really passionate about. And I know that's easier to say when you don't have to worry about making ends meet at the end of the month, but you got to do what really matters to you, or it's not going to work.
I agree completely. This is what I wanted to say. My father told me at this point, go and study what interests you the most. Don't consider any job possibilities or any career. You'll find it later. The most important thing is that you will learn what interests you. And I think this is the recommendation I give.
Do you have another question? Can we answer, or we don't have any? No, I don't think we don't have time. I'm sorry. So thanks all of you. You have really inspired us. We'll be able to listen from them in our upcoming 2 days. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What interesting and inspiring. We have something for you. Yeah? We have a present for you from Targum, and also to EduFest, which we listen to you in the morning, so please come so we can give you special present for you. I'll try to explain what this is. A picture that's outside us in the entrance of our school. I don't know if you already saw it, but we can show it to you. And it's the past, the present, and the future. We have it in the entrance of our school, and this is a lithography for each of you, thanking you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. And we want a picture with all of you. From all of you together. Dali, Patricia, Jacob. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much. We'll have a picture now. Group picture.
Please. Dali, your paper. Please. Thank you.
And
7 years to get one. So we appreciate
to think about, a lot to share. So we're now going to eat, talk, and share, which is really our meal. I hope you're hungry because we have very special and delicious meal. You're hungry? So please go, the tables are ready for you with food, really good food. And please share your thoughts, your ideas, and